Alright, welcome back to the YouTube channel. I always feel like Alright, good morning. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. I always feel like I talk too much during these things, so today I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet. My name is Sam Morton, and I am the founder and admin of the group on Facebook, Ute All the Cars. It has 28,000 members, which I am really proud of. It's a huge group, and it is based solely upon the idea of having cars that are trucks. There are factory utes, there are ute conversions, there are Smith kit conversions. There's all sorts of ways that you can get yourself a ute. I personally like to turn Civics into utes. I had an EK sedan that I cut up, welded the doors closed in the back, and turned into a ute. And it was super awesome. I absolutely loved it. Unfortunately, it got wrecked with a tragic accident that involved a boulder. And I ended up cutting it up, scrapping it out, parting it out, and I haven't had it for over a year. I've had a couple of false starts on other ute projects. I had a Ranchero for a while. I had a Volkswagen Passat that I cut the roof off of. But deep in my heart, I've always really wanted to do another Honda Civic. And honestly, the sedan was pretty cool, but I've always wanted to find a coupe or a hatchback to do. And I found this car really cheap on Facebook Marketplace, and it runs and drives great. It has good tags. I have the title to it, and it has some pretty massive quarter panel damage, which you can't see right now because this is the clean side, but I promise the other side is wrecked. So because of that, as soon as I bought it, I pretty much started telling everyone, yeah, I think this is going to be my next ute. And everyone kept telling me, no, don't do that. Why would you do that? Why would you cut up a perfectly good car? Also, it's about to be the rainy season. I don't know about you guys, but when someone tells me not to do something with my things, it has this tendency to just make me want to do it even more. So I've had this car for like less than a month, and I've put 600 trouble-free miles on it, so I think the sensible thing to do is to go ahead and just cut the roof off. I already bought a hatch. My last ute had a Volkswagen Golf hatch grafted in the middle as a cab back so that it has a nice factory OEM window. And I went to Pick and Pull this morning and bought the same hatch. So yeah, I think I'm pretty much ready. My order of operations here is I went to Pick and Pull and bought the hatch. Now I'm going to cut the roof off. Then I'm going to go to the steel yard with my newly freshly made pickup and buy steel with which to finish the pickup. So stay tuned. I hope you enjoy. long afternoon. Progress has been kind of slow, but I've been spending a lot of time kind of deliberating on exactly what I want to do and how I want to do it. I'm trying to get the hatch situated in exactly the right spot where I like it before I weld anything together and it becomes permanent. I think I have it where I like it, so I'm going to try to throw a couple of tack welds on it and get it to hang here by itself. And then I can do some measuring and make sure that all the gaps are pretty even. It does not have to be perfect, to be honest. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm never going to body work this car. It's not going to get Bondo. It's more of like a Mad Max style thing that I like to do with my Utes. So it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be clean. I probably will put a bunch of bubblegum welds all over this thing and then never even grind them flat, to be honest. So as long as it is reasonably centered and in the spot that I want it, I'm going to go with it. Good morning and welcome back. It is another really quiet Saturday morning, and a lot has happened since you saw me last. You can see in the background that my Ute has come a substantial way. I did not film very much of the process of welding, cutting, grinding. If you guys are familiar with YouTube, you can watch a ton of that, literally infinite hours of metal fabrication is all over the internet, so I don't really feel the need to record myself doing it. I've already recorded quite a bit of that, and I think that it's just boring. So I prefer to just sort of jump ahead to the stages and show you what it is that I'm accomplishing and how I'm going about it. In the last 2 weeks, it's been 2 weeks since you saw me last, and I have a full-time job now. After working on this for a weekend, I had to go back to work and work a full work week. And then the next weekend, my girlfriend and I had to move. We actually got a key to our new place on like Thursday, and I took that Friday off, and I spent all 3 days packing all of our stuff into a trailer, hooking it up to the Ute, and dragging it about 60 miles up Mount Hood. And we've relocated to a place that is just super scenic and quiet, and we're in the middle of nowhere. And it's absolutely beautiful, but it was a ton of work. And it's not the most conducive to working on project cars or filming for YouTube. I'm sure that my neighbors are going to think that I'm a whack job out here talking to myself first thing in the morning, but that's fine. It's better that they get to know that now. I'm going to take you for a walk around the car here in just a few minutes and show you what exactly I've been doing. But basically I got the hatch welded in and I sealed it with silicone. My old Ute used to leak water really bad at all the welded seams, so this time I spent a lot of time really focusing on trying to make it waterproof. I also went about how I put the metal together a little differently. The last time I pretty much overlapped the steel on every seam, and this time I butt welded the steel to itself, to each other at the seams. There's sort of some pros and cons to both, but the pro to this is that it really looks a lot better. It came out much smoother looking. The con is that it was much more difficult to weld. It's really easy to do a lap weld, and you kind of get two different stretches of material to weld on, whereas with a butt seam you only get one chance, and it's really easy to burn through, so you have to be a little more experienced in what you're doing. Luckily I have been welding for quite a bit longer this time, and so I was able to get it accomplished. I think it turned out pretty well, and I've gotten a lot of good reviews, positive reviews from other people who have seen it, who said that it looks pretty good as well. There are some parts of the Ute that are not finished, quite a few parts honestly. The hatch has a rear brake light, a windshield wiper, and a defrost feature. None of those are wired in currently, but eventually I'd like to get them all wired up and working. But more important than that is that it also still needs a tailgate. I need to take the original Honda hatch, cut it in half, and turn it into a tailgate. The reason that I need to do that, most importantly, is because that tailgate has a spot for the rear license plate, and it has a light for the license plate, which, as I'm sure you know, you're legally required to have a license plate light, and the car currently does not. I drive it to work every morning at about 5 a.m. and it is pitch dark outside, so there's a good chance that I'll get pulled over in it at some point. I'm not too concerned, as I do have insurance, it's all legal, but I still would like to avoid getting pulled over and, you know, making the local constabulary even more mad at me. So getting a license plate light on it is the first priority. People have also asked me several times why I left so much material at the C-pillars, and the answer is really, it's not that it's permanent, they're not finished by any means, but making the C-pillars flush with the rest of the bed sides is really just a cosmetic thing. It's just to make the Ute conversion look better, and since I have a lot of functional things that I'm still doing to the Ute, cosmetics really come last, so that'll be one of the last things that I finish and tidy up. It will look a lot better once I trim them down and kind of flatten it out, but for now I just left a lot of extra material there so that I had some room to work. If you've done this kind of thing before, you know that if you cut too much off the first go around, then you really kind of screw yourself. So I'm in the habit now of leaving a lot of extra material, especially when I first cut, and then sort of working my way down to where I want it to be. I did have to weld a hitch on for the move, and that turned out really well. I think that the hatchback has a lot more material in the rear tub section than the coupes or the sedans, because I've welded hitches onto at least a half a dozen Honda Civics now, and I always have a problem with burning through where the trunk area is, except for on this one, which turned out to be very solid and thick, and I had no such problems. I also use a bit of some leftover 1/4 inch thick angle iron that I had left over from a trailer that I built to reinforce it. So I think this is probably the strongest hitch that I've ever put on a Civic. It looks really beefy and tough, and I used it to tow 2 loads with a trailer up and down the mountain several times. I haven't had any issues. People, anytime they see the hitch on this car, they're like, oh, that's just a joke, it's a gag, it can't possibly tow anything, and they are dead wrong. I've used Civics to tow a trailer with a dirt bike in it several times, a trailer with a quad on it. I've used Civics to tow many things functionally over the years, and I find they make really good little tow rigs as long as you don't overload them down. And you need to understand that the braking system is, of course, a little inadequate for towing, so you have to leave yourself a lot of room and be prepared to make stops pretty far in advance, which is pretty much always true of any towing situation anyways. I am a driver for a roofing company, and so towing is actually pretty much what I do for a living. I go pick up dump trailers and haul them loaded down, so I'm pretty good at it, pretty well experienced. I haven't had any issues with this thing so far. Also, speaking about its waterproofedness, it has rained since I put this thing together, and so far in my experience, fingers crossed, I haven't seen any leaks. No water has gotten into this car. It still has the carpet and the headliner. I installed speakers in the rear hatch, and so far everything has stayed perfectly dry, which I'm really happy about. The first Ute, my girlfriend really did not like to ride in because it leaked so much water and it really stank inside, like metal fabrication, grinding and stuff. I was able to keep this one a lot cleaner by removing most of the interior while I was doing the conversion, and by keeping it waterproof, it's really helped on like the musty smell. So let's take a look at what we've got, and I'll show you around a little bit, and then I hope you guys will stay tuned as I continue to finish up this project.
Alright, let's go for a quick tour around the Ute. Starting on the outside, you can see that the body lines have come out pretty good. It is a nice short little pickup. This is of course the pretty side that wasn't wrecked. I went ahead and threw my old Ute hood on it, which is just sort of a sentimental thing to me. This hood has actually been on probably a half a dozen Civics, just as many as I've put hitches on. And I always throw it, anytime I buy an EK Civic, this hood just has to go on it. It's mandatory, and I just rock it. I think it's fun. I left the fuel filler body colored. That's sort of another throwback to my last Ute. I just think it's kind of fun to do that as well. This is of course the wrecked side. This quarter panel damage here is one of the main reasons why I decided to turn it into a Ute. It doesn't really hurt anything, but it did make the car pretty ugly anyways, so I wasn't too worried about ruining it. Here's that hitch that I was talking about. This actually came off of a Toyota 4Runner, and you can see here I've reinforced it with some really, that's like 1/4 inch thick steel welded in there. And here, this is the originally where the rear bumper support would have been, and I've cut the brackets and then welded them to the hitch as well. So altogether, that thing is quite beefy. It's really well on there. It's definitely not the weakest link in the system. The weakest link is probably the body and the brakes. And here you can see the Volkswagen hatch that I have welded in. And it came with these stickers on it, kind of some ricer stickers. And I thought, you know, I'm just gonna leave those on there. I think it's hilarious. Here's my welds. Try not to look too closely, but roast me in the comments if you'd like. Keep in mind that this was all done with a Harbor Freight flux core welder, and I am not trained as a welder. I am not certified. I taught myself how to weld on my first Ute, and I've spent quite a lot of time welding on trailers and other projects since then. But really, just experience and self-taught is the only thing that I can claim. And yeah, here's the bed, my little spare in there, just in case. If you paid a lot of attention, you may have noticed that this car did have some Diamond Racing Steelies on it, but I have switched back to the stock 13s. They have better tires and they handle a little better in my opinion. Here's the interior. Pretty much looks like any old boring automatic Civic in this section anyways. But here's the good part. Let's see if I can zoom out a little bit here. I just screwed the 6x9s straight into the hatch, so they're not very pretty in there, but it does work. I currently just have the license plate taped into the window, which, as I said earlier, is not exactly legal, but I'll get there. Here we have some, see that? There's some wires dangling here that are leftovers. Those are for the brake light, the windshield wiper. Hopefully the wiper motor works. I'd love to get the windshield wiper going, the third brake light, and the defrost all working on this rear window. Although the defrost probably isn't necessary, because if you just run the defroster for the front of the car, it's so small in here now that it defrosts the back window as well. Anyways, and that's the Ute, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I still have quite a bit of work to do. I want to finish the tailgate and the hatch stuff, and then I'll clean up the C-pillars, and then after that maybe we'll get around to doing some modifications. I've thought about lowering it, I've thought about lifting it, thought about maybe doing a B-swap and a manual swap. This thing is currently my daily, so I'd have to probably buy something else if I'm gonna B-swap it. But it would be really fun to give this thing even more power and make it fast. Let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. And thanks for watching.